one of the like consistent themes that I saw all throughout 2022 is that if you are content with imperfection and with imperfect efforts, then you will have a lot more joy in your life. I spent a lot of time this year praying when I didn't graduate with a job and when different things happened and I put all of the blame on myself. Like, this is completely my fault. And if we put the ball in 2021's Dallin's hands or 2020 Dallin's hands, would be completely different. And I used my beautiful God given gift of visualization to basically create walls for myself. And it became difficult, and there's the physical manifestation of this I saw later in the year. So I think one of the big things that happened was that July 1st or 2nd, I was feeling pretty good. I got to have this river rafting trip with my church group, and I was wearing these sandals, and this guy was like chilling in his e-bike, and it was like a small parking lot, and he's like, hey, if anybody wants to try riding it. And so tried riding it. He gave me some tips. It was a small parking lot. I tried turning, but at first I was like, I was doing good, I was doing fine. And then I needed to turn a little bit and turned a little bit to the left, and then didn't have momentum anymore, so lost a ton of momentum. And then the bike is starting to fall on me, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, what is going on? It happens so fast. I think this is like one of the biggest, craziest takeaways from 2022 as well. I'm gonna have a lessons episode as well because I'm a sucker for that, and it's helpful for me for sure. But it's like, you know, things can happen so quickly, and this can be on the good side. This can also be on the not so good side. So it helps to do the preparations you can and put yourself out there. And yeah, I mean, trust yourself, trust your instincts, right? So the bike's starting to fall on me. Thankfully, it's like built in a certain way, so it's not going to fall completely on my foot. However, I'm like straddled over the motorcycle, right? E-bike. And I don't know what to do. And the guy is like all the way down the road. He's like, oh no. Like, we've already gone off the path of safety. Like, we're no longer in the, okay, this is what was supposed to happen arena. We're beyond that. And so I'm, straddled over it. And I ended up moving my right hand and like doing this motion that you do to like turn on a motorcycle. And those e-bikes go like 0 to not 100, but they go really quickly. And so my foot is on the ground and it was dragging in this circle. And I'm not going to share any pictures. You could find it if you go on my Instagram or whatever. But it's like, literally, I was wearing these super nice flip flops and those got shredded. And if I'd been wearing dinky flip flops, dude, I probably wouldn't even have a foot. Like, it would have been a lot much longer of a recovery process. Literally, the most painful part of the injury happened in like this part of my foot that was like covered by the most material on the flip flop, and it completely blew my mind when I saw that. And there's this wonderful family that was like, holy cow, we saw what happened, and I'm bleeding and stuff, and I left this like literal circle, in the road, just from the skid marks of the vehicle. And they went and got some stuff for me, and that was like, holy cow, Heavenly Father God needs me to have a foot, dude. And it was going to take patience, and I think it was exactly what I needed, because I really wasn't listening to him at the time. I was really upset and frustrated. I was like, I've put in all this work, and I feel like I've been a good person in college, and yet here we are, and I am not happy at all where I am at. Like, I had my first relationship and that was good, but ultimately I was seeking for validation with a lot of things, and with that, and just with everything. When I started the year, I basically was like, okay, I'm just going to get everything done that I want to get done this year. Didn't really have any clear goals because I felt like setting goals wasn't really working. Lately I've been setting goals a lot better for a way that works for me personally. It's been really joyful. But at the time I was just like, whatever, I'm just going to go for it. And yeah, so it was just a real blessing. There's people that were put in my life, literal angels like this girl and other people, that just really helped me out. And it just took some time. And I think this accident, this thing was a catalyst that really helped me a lot because I was praying a lot. And I also, it happened like a couple days before my second time at FSY. So FSY is this like youth camp, and I got to help out these youth and help them find Christ and, all these different things. And so it was basically like the closest thing I've experienced, like my mission, my 2-year mission, which was so transformational and foundational for me and my life, right? And so like I got to go to Alaska at first, and that was super cool. And then I had like a week at home at my cousin's house because they let me stay there, which is super nice of them. And then like this happened like right before I went over to Logan. And so I ended up actually being in a wheelchair for the first time in my life. Actually, I think the second time in my life, but this time was a lot longer. I needed to be pushed around by my youth, and I could walk around a little bit, but it was painful, man. And I was in this cramped little apartment. So I'd like wake up and I'm like, what am I doing? Getting up at like 6 a.m., helping out these youth. I know without a shadow of a doubt that God was God was doing everything he could to help me out. Some of the youth were literally angels for me, and some of them they follow me on Instagram or whatever still, and I think a couple of them are listening to the podcast. It's like obviously they're still youth, and I can't really talk with them much, but like it's cool to at least have knowing that I'm in their sphere of influence and vice versa kind of thing. I think that's just cool how God does that. But it was painful, but there was so many joyful moments too. Like I got pushed around like in the wheelchair, and so there's a couple times where I get pushed down this like ramp, and it was cool. And one of my favorite moments was we were brought into this devotional, and it was a day I really didn't want to walk much at all because it needed to heal, and I needed to get the bandages repaired all the time, and I express gratitude for all of this. Like there's just been so many beautiful things that have happened. It's like, I'm glad the podcast hasn't blown up. I'm glad that I'm not like rich from this or anything like that, because it's helped me to understand myself so much better. So like if something crazy did happen next year or something, well, I feel like I've learned a lot more and I've developed more empathy, so I'd make wiser choices if such a thing were to happen. But at this point, it's in God's hands, and he's the one who started this, and he's the one that will provide the gas, the ideas, dude. It's like, I literally didn't sleep last night. It's the last day of the year. I worked on the newsletter, and I know this is crazy. I'm a little obsessed, dude. I have a little bit of an addictive personality, but I just started watching these videos of like, parkour and basketball and stuff. And it's like, I don't want to sleep. So like, I thought about it. It's like, I prayed in my mind. It's like, how can I actually do better at this? Because I know it's possible, because I've done better at it before. I finished up at DI recently, and it was a good job for me at the time. But now it's like, okay, we gotta adapt, we gotta learn. And so I had this idea to come up with this poem that I'll read in the morning and I'll read at night, and I'm gonna try that out. I'm gonna do that, and I believe that will really help me out a lot. I'm gonna record it. I'm gonna do a lot of different stuff to make exposure so inevitable. And that's one of the things that's helped me so much, because it's like, you can be surrounded by good vibes, and you can have all these different things to lift you up. But what's most important is that you have those around you in the times when you are most vulnerable, and in times when you're just going about doing your daily thing. We'll go into this more, but like one of the biggest steps forward that I made was that I bought a copy of The Magic of Thinking Big for like $2, and I put it in my car. And I said, okay, every single time I get in this car, before I leave this car, I need to read a page at a minimum. If I can read more if I want, but like minimum of a page, or like even a paragraph or a couple of sentences, and that's helped rewire things multiple times and helped me to see things with eyes of gratitude instead of fear, frustration, or lack of self-compassion, etc. It's really, really, really helped me tons. Yeah, so I think FSY, dude, it was so good. And for me, I was literally in a wheelchair at some points, and I was still making a difference for these youth. I was still helping them out. Like there was one time where I literally got pushed a couple miles because just the youth are so good. And I just remember them so fondly and what they did, Their names are engraven in my mind, a lot of them. I just am so thankful for them. And, I just know that, kind of going back to the angels thing, I know God was using them as angels for me, at a certain period of time, And so, in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the church I'm a part of, I'm very devout about my faith, but I don't force on anybody. I just want to love people, man. Just 'cause life is crazy. This year has been such a roller coaster. I've been tested and tried and refined, and really have learned so much about myself and how to love Dallin. What does that look like? I learned that from this girl. She was really wonderful and really kind and good to me, and was what I needed at the time. She taught me a lot of things, just to be kinder to myself, and so it's just like there's so much that I still need to do for myself, and I need to do on a consistent basis. And it's not weakness, it's not anything like that. It's like, dude, it's living my life. Like, if I'm enjoying like playing basketball, like, bro, play basketball. It's like I've been seeing this a lot more and understanding this a lot more, and getting better at it. But it's taken pain. It's taken some difficulty. I've chosen the harder path in some ways. It's easy to overanalyze, and it's easy to get frustrated about things outside of your control. But at the end of the day, it's like God knows what's going on, and he is not going to let things happen that are going to hurt you, in the long-term perspective. Like, long-term perspective, it's like, this is going to help you. Short-term perspective, yes, there might be some pain. I've been running a ton lately, and there's some days it is not what I want to do at all, but it's like, this is the way forward, and I've also just visualized myself not as like being in any kind of hole or anything like that, but like, hey, this is part of the breakthrough, and just taking it one day at a time. If you listen back to the old 2021 annual review thing, I just listened to it again. I was pretty hard on myself. I wasn't appreciating the little wins I was getting, I think a lot of it too is just understanding more how God sees things. Because from his perspective, with me being around those youth, I was exactly who they needed. There was no like, oh, you need to be this person, you need to be that person. Like, that was not part of the table at all. That was not there. It's like, if Dallin is at the table and he's passing forks and he's, here I am making up a dumb analogy. It's great. I love it. But it's like, if Dallin is there and he's able to pass the broccoli, he's able to pass the potato chips, he's able to be there for those youth, that is exactly what I want. That's all I want. I just want Dallin. I'm thinking of like what God wants. That's something I've written in my journal. I've written in my journal almost every single day through this whole experience. Like ending of the relationship, graduating without a job, etc., etc. It's been so valuable. I'm sure I'll look back on that and be like, holy cow, this is a treasure trove, and it's just amazing. I'm so thankful for all of that, but it's all just been a process, and it's all like comes back to me loving myself and validating my journey. There's been so many times this year where it's like somebody's like, hey, you know what? I don't think you should do that. And I'm like, I'm going to do it anyway because I trust myself, and I'm going to do that. And then I'm like, hey, this is great. This is awesome. And it's good because I trust myself. And it's nothing against any other person. It's just like, I really feel like God has lifted me up through so many things. And there's a reason why things have happened the way they've happened. Sure, things could have been different. I could have, whatever. I've thought so much about that. Things could have been different. Things could have changed. But the thing is, like, God is here in this moment with me right now. And that's everything. That's everything. It's like I stayed up all night last night watching like parkour videos and dumb cat videos or whatever. It's like, who cares, dude? That was the past. That was last night, dude. That's nothing. It's like, are you ready now? Are you changing? It's like, I love this new version of me that's being created because I watch basketball a lot more. I've been watching the Jazz, and it's just been so great. And how I talk to myself has improved because I've been writing so much poetry and like repeating it to myself. I've been using all of these skills that I let dormant, which led to a lot of my struggle, was leaving all these talents on the table because I listened to this lie that like, hey, you are becoming too powerful. I literally had that thought, like a year or so ago. It was like, you're becoming too powerful. You need to tone it down. And I didn't pray to God about that. I didn't ask anything about that. I just was like, okay, well, I guess I should slow down, and just, I don't even know how to explain it. It just sort of, I let it get in my head and just not really push forward as much about it. And I'd let myself stress more about things like the podcast. I let myself stay up late about it. And, my last semester was crazy. It was crazy. It was great. I pushed myself so hard, but I learned so much about myself and how I work. I found over and over again, I do have this little bit of ADHD, which is like I have this ability to hyper focus. But then there's other times I've been playing a lot of Ultimate Frisbee with my roommate, and that was a really big tender mercy, over this period of the last couple months or so before I worked at DI, is like I was playing Frisbee and I'd lose my mind. I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I just get lost, and it's such a beautiful thing. I love that about myself. I really do. It's like some people be like, where are you? And it's like, I'm sometimes in my own world, just imagining and creating, I've been creating and imagining so much this year. And so I've seen so much more joy in doing that. I think the other thing is that when all of this started, falling into place or falling out of place, etc., I decided I was going to get back into running, and I hit that super hard. I started going on these nighttime Saturday night runs that were like 3 or 4 miles. And this was after, I'd healed from my injury. And it was like, holy cow, again, God needs me to have a foot, and he needs me to keep working. He needs me to keep trying new things. And I've benefited a lot from running, and it fueled a transformation once. I was in a place where I did not like it very much, 14, 15 years old. And then I started running consistently because I didn't make the basketball team. 3 years later, YouTube channel, going on a mission soon, like planning on going on a mission. It took a little while, but it's like I was in a very good place. And, I've ran pretty consistently the last couple months, and I feel pretty amazing. I really do. And I also went to therapy for a little bit, and that was also super, super good. I have nothing but gratitude for people, man. I think something that's really stood out to me this year is there's been times where some negative thought or some comment or something not good has come to mind, and then I've been like, you know what? This is just not worth it. It's just not worth it. Like if anything that I've done in the most beautiful moments of my life suggests anything of what I'm capable of doing in the future with God's help and with the help of others, that negative thought is nowhere close to being, worth being thought about. And so I've done a good job of just recycling that and cleaning that up. And that was something that I learned a ton to do in therapy. I did a little bit of that on my mission. I learned a little bit about the power of that, but went really deep with my therapist, that I had. And she was really awesome. And she helped me again with, celebrating things. And I think that objective point of view was so helpful too. Just understanding. She's like, hey, I'm not going to toot my horn too much, but she's like, yeah, when you say, hey, I'm going to work on this before our next visit, you actually do it. There are people that I work with and I tell them, do this and it will get better. And they come back and they haven't done that. For me, a big part of the ADHD is I am so impatient sometimes when it comes to progress. And I just want things to happen. And I've seen this, I look back and I see this clearly with a lot of different things. And then there's other things where I'm just so patient and I don't even care. It's just like, I'm just whatever, I'm chilling. But then there's other things where it's like, I want to see growth so quickly, and it's not fair because it's just going to take one day at a time. And yeah, that just goes with everything. Just be patient, trust the process. So I've been running a lot more. I've learned deeper about how I can help others, even if I was in a wheelchair. Been taking more 1% wins. Been talking to myself a lot better. I'm learning a lot what loving Dallin looks like. And I've also just been giving myself more grace because I know 100% that God has so much grace to give me and give all of us. I've certainly made some mistakes. I've stumbled. I've, tried to go after jobs I felt like weren't, something I needed to do, and then fell flat on my bum about it, and then I turned to God and was like, what's going on, But there's these beautiful moments, you know, meeting some really good friends, playing frisbee with my roommate, rewatching Avatar, getting into basketball again. I'm on a basketball team right now. There's so many beautiful things that I've just been like, dude, life is really worth living because I am designing it, I'm creating it. And that is something that I really, 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 really value in myself because I've done it before and I'm doing it again. And it's like, I don't care if other people are like, whatever, dude, that's stupid. God doesn't think my dreams are stupid. And he also cares about what I care about. Obviously, that there needs to be like sustainability, there needs to be growth and logic. But at the end of the day, I'm his son. You listening to this are his son or his daughter, and your dreams and goals and ideas and mindsets and your well-being, your sleep habits, everything is so ridiculously precious to him. But if he helped you with working on everything so quickly, then we'd get overwhelmed. So I've just been taking it more a day at a time. And in the last couple months, things have been pretty fire. I mean, my setup is a pretty good example. I mean, sure, I still record kind of the same way as I did before, but there has been some improvement, and I'm going to try to invest in some better equipment next year, see what goes on with that. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums up health. Overall, mentally way better than last year overall. Been running a ton, been fixing on my discipline, and I think tracking it has been ridiculously helpful too, because I ran a pretty good amount in 2021 as well, but just you don't track it as well. You don't understand how well you're actually doing. But when you have the tracker, you understand the story. So there's been that. I've been writing a ton more. Overall, things have been better. I know we talked a lot here, and I promise the last 2 sections won't be as long, but I appreciate you listening. So yeah, side hustles, man. I didn't make a cent. That's okay. I wrote a lot of poems, and I'm going to come out with a poetry collection. It'll be like my first official book in January 2023. I've made promises about writing books before, and things kind of fell apart with that. But with this one, I'm like, you know what? I've already written most of it. It's just some poems that I hope will help out some youth, because I know this wasn't just me. These are inspired by my life experiences, sure, but like I believe that, God has put the ideas in my mind, has been helping me out with it. Put out another 100 or so podcast episodes, interviewed a bunch of people, interviewed a lot of people during like May, which really wasn't that smart. I should have just been, should have is not the right word, but it's like, it would have been good if I was just chilling, what is kind of not, it's basically the same thing, but it's like, I said I was going to chill a lot more, and then I didn't really chill a lot more. And so that's something I've been doing a lot more now, is like, hey, we're going to give Dallin some slack. But like, he's working really hard and learning and changing and stuff. I also jumped on some phone calls with different listeners of the podcast. Had my friend Nick Reese on, had some other people on, and it was a good time. I don't really know what 2023 holds, but this year the podcast, I believe it got 5,000 or 6,000 downloads, maybe. No, probably like 4,000 or 5,000. It's probably like around there. We're getting closer to 10,000, which is cool. 10,000 lifetime, which isn't bad. We've had a couple of 500 a month download months, and I'm like, okay, we need our first 1,001. But it's interesting because this is just so peaceful for me and so helpful. I mean, it would be nice if it reached more people. At the same time, I'm okay with it not. I mean, I don't know. I'm still figuring out a lot of stuff. I'm having Danny Miranda on the show in early January of next year, and I think that will really help me get some better perspective. I finished up my old gaming YouTube channel I started back in 2012 and took a break from when I was on my mission. I finished it in May 2022, so that was difficult to do, but I finally just let that gaming persona and by the wayside. It's like, this gave me so much, but to focus more on this than the podcast and other stuff, it's kind of like robbing me. And I don't want to do that. Have my past self rob my future self or something. Don't want that. I did set up a support me link. I think it goes to my PayPal. If you look on Buzzsprout, I'm not asking for any money, but it's there. I've been thinking about setting up a Patreon, but I'm like, I don't know. I really want it to be useful for people. That's why we have the Discord. I feel like that's like a good precursor to what I would like to do with helping other people. But at the same time, I try to look at facts and try to understand that, because I can get so hype. I mean, there's that episode about like hype over substance, or hype and substance. You need both. And although I really enjoy the podcast, it seems like, I don't know, just need more marketing or something. I don't know. Just seems like, I don't know. Numbers are definitely not where I'd like them to be. But it's like, if it's helping people, that's something. I don't know. I've said I don't know like 50 times, but it's kind of the truth. I went to Orlando for Podfest, so I got to meet Mark Savon in person, Alex Sanfilippo in person, and some other people I'd only met online in person. So that was super cool. Just people in my element, because I feel like I love podcasts, and I have some people in my network that I talk to, but I don't really talk to many of them that frequently, people that are like in my niche. So yeah, I did start a newsletter, the Yield Weekly newsletter, which has been a good experience. It just is time consuming. I enjoy it though. I really do. I started the 365 Days of Growth Challenge back on July 22nd, 2022. And I was like, okay, next 365 days, I'm going to post something about something I'm improving and working on. And that's been crazy. I'm like 120 or so days in. So check out my Instagram at Dallin's Yield if you want to see that. It used to be Dream Chaser Dallin, but I changed it just for more consistent branding across Twitter and stuff. Because Dream Chaser Dallin on Twitter was taken, and honestly, I've kind of changed the whole chaser mindset. It's like, it's cool to chase after things, but I also don't want to chase after things anymore. It's just like, enjoy the life, enjoy things, And I think Dallin's Yield is probably a better term for me right now. So yeah, I put out over 300 posts from all of that, and some were just exclusive to LinkedIn. So that was cool. Wrote a lot of poems, and yeah, that's basically that. Worked on the podcast, prayed about the podcast, tried getting more traction on the YouTube channel. But I love these reviews because it's like we get to understand what exactly happened, So one thing that happened was I didn't let myself take the little W's sometimes. It wouldn't be that difficult to get caught up in the podcast YouTube channel. You just put out like 10 videos a day and do that for like a month and you're all caught up or something like that, I did put out a lot of shorts on the podcast YouTube channel, and those were all from my phone, so they weren't the best quality, but we did have a couple break the couple hundred views mark, so that was cool. It was good. I've been taking a lot of notes from Danny, and I think that's everything with this podcast moving forward. If I can make really good clips, because I promise you there's been some amazing moments, and I know you know too, but it's like clipping some of these things so that they can just have greater reach is paramount. It's everything right now. If I don't get better at that, I don't see the podcast continuing. I don't know. It's just so hard. It's so hard for me because I'm like, I want to see it grow because it's like there's opportunity cost. There's other things I could be doing. But I love it. I love interviewing people. It just helps me grow and stuff. So I don't know. I tried a lot of stuff. I'm happy that I have a newsletter now, that has like 9 subscribers. And again, I'm thinking for every single one. Right now it's in a rebuilding phase. I was sharing like little wins from different parts of my life, health, wealth, mentality, hobbies, and family. And it was good, but found out one of my friends is using High Five Friday or something close to it as their thing. And so I'm changing it all up, and I'm excited because it's like, I'm a numbers guy. I'm an idea guy. I'm a creative guy. So it's like, this is perfect. I can change it up. So yeah, that was Side Hustles in a nutshell. Overall, good growth. I think better focus, better systems, more patience, more execution, more learning, and a lot of thinking about the future, because like the podcast will literally be 4 years old in August, and I'm pretty consistent. I haven't missed an upload for a pretty good amount of time, and have certainly been late on sometimes, but the numbers, at least the number of episodes, says a lot. So many episodes from like May to September, I think it was like 50 of them, were just me, different thoughts about life and whatnot. And I think a lot of them is what I needed at the time. So I appreciate those who listened, and I think a lot of those are really worth listening to still, even though they're recorded on my phone and stuff. I just appreciate you listening, because I knew this was going to be a longer episode, and I just really appreciate you listening. I'm really trying to understand what I can do, what best ways to engage this community. If you have any ideas, you can reach out to me on Instagram or LinkedIn, or hit the link in the Discord or in the show notes to find the Discord. Whatever works for you, or even just pray for me, man, or pray for the people that listen to the podcast. Like, I don't know. Prayer is super, super, super powerful and slept on. I really, really, really is. God is able to do anything. We need to exercise faith. That's something I learned so much this year too. Is like, if you are trying to do something that hasn't worked and is not meant for you, that's not really exercising faith. Faith is about going after something that you are not quite sure is real or is going to exist, but you feel compelled to do. That's a lot of what faith is. So yeah, overall really good. Built relationships, grew relationships, changed a lot of things and learned a lot of things, and came out with a new logo after, find like 2+ years, because I was trying to make business cards for Podfest, and might go to Podfest in January. I don't know. That would be cool. More stories for sure. And I get to go to Florida again, which I absolutely love Florida, bro. Oh, I would go back in a heartbeat, but I need money. I need to figure things out. But anyway, that was that for Side Hustles. Really thankful for the support with there. Finally, we have education. So, obviously I graduated from college. I finished with it doesn't really matter. My GPA is like high threes. I think it was like a 3.6 or something. That wasn't what I was going to talk about. It was like a spreadsheet analysis was a baller class. Had brother Harold. I got to talk with brother Morley a lot. He gave me some really good girl advice and other stuff. And it was just awesome. I have so many people in my corner, and they love me as I am right now. They're not asking me to be somebody that, like, a version of Dallin that hasn't made these mistakes or struggled or whatever. It's like they just want me to be me. They just want present me to be okay, and there's so much power in that. There's so much power in that. There's not really like a value you can put on that. I've like seen that. It's like friends that continue to reach out and be like, hey, I see you doing this, I want to help you out, or you're doing great. You would only really say those things if you really meant them, and if you could see something, and if you'd felt something. Like Aaron Denny, Tim Skaggs, Parker Kane, I could rattle them off. They've been good, and they've really helped me out during this crazy learning experience, the sifting process of my soul, different parts of my soul and heart and whatever, just learning so many different things. I made a juggling playlist, which was so hype. I made so many playlists this year. Juggling, infiltration is like for like chasing, like a run, like super deep idea of that. Healing is one, just for general songs that have exuded that feeling for me. Then there's like a dance playlist. Shout out to Joseph Corella, who I recently had on the podcast. That a lot of that was him, just that episode is so fire. It's honestly one of my favorite interviews for sure, because it just I feel like we really got deep, and it just was so good listening to that. I'm like, this is why I do this. You have an episode that like gets 2 downloads, it's like whatever. It's like, this is why I do it, because it's all about reps. It's all about putting yourself out there. It's all about learning and changing and growing. There's no doubt that I am a lot farther ahead than somebody who's just like, okay, I'm going to start a podcast today, because of all the gaming channel experience and all that other jazz. Anyway, so I already talked about building systems. I really learned to respect my ADHD more. Two of the biggest things with that is structure and novelty. So I've been building that in with the Magic of Thinking Big book in my car. I've been building novelty with that as well, because I flipped to a completely random page. And so it could be different every single time, and playing more video games, and video games have tons of novelty. So that's been really good. It really just has been good. I've just been learning so much about myself, and it's been good. There was some days of from DI where I was like home, and there's this one really important week where I missed a couple of days of work because I was sick. And so I was good enough to work on some stuff, but not really good enough to be in public. And I was getting stuff done, dude. And it was great. And I was like, I feel so happy, even though I'm not making a cent, but I love this. I really do. I love this. So develop systems to track things better. I think one of the biggest takeaways was creating multiple journals for certain things. So I have a journal for all my podcast episodes now. I have a journal for meditation that is probably over there. I did like a 1 hour meditation last night because I was inspired by Danny Miranda. I was like, I'm just going to do it. And I ended up falling asleep, which I think means I went into ultimate Zen mode. But yeah, even though I literally was up all night last night, I did read a lot in Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker, and it's super good. Can you tell I'm really tired? But I just love this. I really do. I'm trying to figure things out, man. I really am. I've found a lot of things out about myself. So build a lot of reading systems, kind of talked about that. Started learning about Utah Jazz basketball. They're doing really good right now. And so I've just been loving it. I've been eating it up. I'll like watch the highlights at night. And I had the thought, today, I think part of that like poem I'm going to write to help me that I'll read in the morning and at night, it's going to be called like You and Me. It's going to be like my relationship with God, kind of thing. Just reminders of that and thanking him and different stuff I want to work on and stuff. Like there's just been so much help. I had the thought of like, dude, if I could just play basketball, dude, every day, why aren't I playing basketball every day? I've started writing every day, thanks to 750 words, which was such a W. But like, why the heck aren't I playing basketball every day? There's no reason not to. I'm still pretty young. It's like, why don't I do that? And why don't I just work on that? So that's something I'm planning on going to do. Maybe not every day in 2023, but like, I just want to shoot hoops again. Like it's not very far away from my house. And I'm planning on moving in probably the next 6 or 7 months or so, just because of craziness and the need to move, because my roommates are planning on moving and selling the place and blah, 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 and all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, God, I trust you, because I feel like he is very aware of this. And this is, again, part of the plan, setbacks and whatever. It's like, well, it's all about where you're looking when such a thing is happening. If you're paying attention to something that's not very useful, you're probably going to see it as much more painful than it actually is, but you look at God, you look at all the good he's done for other people. It's like, bro, you trust God and things work out. They just do. And it doesn't matter how long it takes. It's like, whatever. It's part of the preparation. That means you're just going to shine brighter when you get on the court. That's like exactly what it means, So did a lot of writing, podcasting, learned a little bit about copywriting, did some interviews to do that for a company, and that didn't really work. So right now the plan, I'm just putting this out in public. So here we go. I'm going to be working on my copywriting a lot, going to try to do it for other people, mostly going to try to do it on my own stuff, like that poetry book I was talking about, use that experience to leverage to get a better job, and obviously like network and whatever too. But yeah, that's basically 2022 as a whole. Like as far as like what happened and things I learned from it, there's so many beautiful moments. There's so many just great things. Like my birthday, I was so depressed on my birthday. I was feeling like all of these feelings because like my first week of FSY, my first full week, but again, the education thing, I learned so much from myself when I looked to God in that moment. I was in Alaska and there was this like flowing river, and I took a break, from being there with the kids. I told the supervisors and whatever, like, okay, yeah, take a break. It's your birthday. You need to chill. I mean, if you're feeling this way, and I just watched this river go by, and it was such a powerful moment. It really was. It's like, I just saw this river going down, and the thought that came to mind was like, Dallin, it's it's going to go on. It's going to be okay. You know, you can look all the way up the river and there's beauty there, but it's like, look at all that stuff that is yet to come. And you are here for that. So we're staying in it, you know, we're just going to keep learning. And I've been getting genuinely super excited because I've been running so much. I've been writing so much. It's like, I'm getting momentum and I'm starting to get recognized to a certain degree by people I want to be recognized by. So it's like, if I just keep this up, prove my systems and don't stay up all night, you know, like it'll be great. It'll be great. It's going to get better. It's going to get better, you know? I wrote this cool poem it was like about self-care. And it basically was talking about like making my slide of life like wetter, you know, having more water that goes down it. And that's just been a piece of the puzzle, I think, is just understanding that, like creating things so that I feel like I get a better slide down my slide of life, you know, more momentum, more understanding, more joy in the moment. You know, because I remember there's this place that we went to when I was like a kid, and we had like season passes for it. This place close to where we were living at the time. And one of the slides was really slow and it was like open and it was pretty slow. And I kind of equate that to like, well, yes, it was slow because it wasn't super focused. It wasn't super enclosed. It was really open. But then there's another one that was like super enclosed and you went down and it's like a lot faster. And you didn't really see what was going on, but then you just shot out like a shoot, you know? I just absolutely love what President Nelson of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, somebody I revere to be a prophet of God, he talked about spiritual momentum, you know, in April when I felt like I had zero, like very little spiritual momentum whatsoever. He's like, hey, you focus on just getting these little wins and getting these little W's, and it just adds up. You know, he shared an experience about this team that was down in a game of basketball and then how they got a bucket and then they stole the bucket. They stole the inbound pass and then passed it to somebody else and got a 3-pointer. And so they're up by 2, like at the buzzer, where they were down by like 3 or 4. And so I've just been thinking about that more and asking myself that question. It's like, how can I put myself ahead? How can I increase my spiritual momentum? How can I work on these things? And it's been so beautiful because I have been creating boundaries for myself. And I think that'll be one of the other episodes that comes out in the next couple months is like what I've learned about creating boundaries. You know, a big boundary is I'm not writing a new newsletter for the next 2 months because I'm just going to focus on podcasting and getting a job, you know? It's like I love writing, but the newsletter is really small right now and I'd rather work smarter and not necessarily harder. And I already write a ton, so there's no danger of losing that. But yeah. So I think that concludes it. I need sleep, but I'm not going to sleep because it's the last day of 2022 and I'm not going to remember the last day of 22 is, oh yeah, I stayed up all night watching cat videos and just parkour videos, which are crazy, and basketball videos, like watching the Ja Morant chips video, like how he was discovered because this guy needed a bag of chips. I just love that story. I'd love to have Ja Morant on the podcast. Chase Adams too, you know, some basketball people, that would be so sweet. But yeah, I have a lot of compassion for myself that's like fresh, and I feel like my relationship with God has never really been stronger because it's been tested so much and because he's shown me so much how much he trusts me, which kind of blows my mind in some ways, but it's all good. It's all good. So yeah, I am I'm tired. My legs are like bouncing. It's like yeah, it's just the bouncing leg thing, you know. I'm really tired too. I've eaten like some granola bars. I don't know. These are just beautiful moments though. It's just beautiful memories. I threw them all in the trash, but I ate like 5 granola bars while I was doing my super long YouTube binge. And it was shorts. Of course it was shorts. But there's like this guy who like did these crazy dunks, and that was cool. I didn't know about him and some other stuff. So I think there's some redeeming benefits to it. But I obviously sleep is way better. But yeah, I just can't get on shorts anymore. Yeah, I just keep telling myself that, and then it just sort of happens again sometimes. But I think writing that poem will really be a big benefit to me. But yeah, so I'm going to enjoy the rest of the day. And a little shout out to my brother James. He's been going ham on the YouTube uploading game. He had one video that got like 2,000 views, and that was super cool. And I have some things I'm going to definitely do more episodes of him because I love him. He's my brother, and I feel like we do pretty good bouncing off of each other. But yeah, he's pretty close to 100 subs. So if you're into animation and, graphic design and storytelling and stuff, check out his channel. I'll have a link in the show notes. He would love your support. He's been working really hard on it. So yeah, I think we'll just leave it at that for education and overall learning. It's been good. I've learned so much about myself. It's like I just understand so much if I create a schedule and I create structure and I create these things that provide novelty for me. It's beautiful what happens over time. You get some momentum going. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah, so that was this episode, dude. I think this is the longest solo episode of all time. Literally almost 50 minutes long, but I do appreciate every single second, even if you didn't listen to the whole thing. I'm going to try to put this out on YouTube quickly, and yeah, going to create a better schedule to get things more caught up with the podcast and make the most of everything because we have some really sick guests on deck for the next couple months. So, and beyond that, for sure, I think we just got to keep it up, keep it going, keep the train rolling. But I would really appreciate if you, left a review. That really helps the podcast get seen by more people. Just share things that you love and appreciate because I love words of affirmation. I really do. And even though I'm not seeking for that kind of validation anymore, I really want this podcast to help more people. So yeah, I did also start a podcast called the Flexive Gold Podcast, which has also been super cool, just about my spiritual journey and stuff. So I can have that as a link in the show notes too. But yeah, I'm just really thankful for you and for listening and just hearing about all my stories about how I was able to get more 1% wins. I was able to start writing a lot more, running and basketball, and all these little wins and all these great things that have been happening, and all these changes. It's been really exciting and cool. So feel free to jump in the Discord. I don't mean to give you 1,000 different call to actions, but yeah, all the links are in the show notes. All the links are in the show notes. I appreciate you. I would say I even love you. I'm thankful for you listening and hope that this podcast has been a blessing for you today and that you go back and listen to some old episodes because this podcast, re-listening to it, has really been a real blessing for me. It really has. So with that all said, I will see you in 2023, my friend. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to heal today, and it'll be a better tomorrow. Well, there we go.